Hello, everyone, and welcome to StoryForge, an offshoot of the Untold Stories project. This project shines a light on role playing systems that don't get the attention they deserve. StoryForge specifically is meant to focus on character creation within these systems. My name is Andy, and I will be your Forge Master for this series, so let's strike while the iron is hot. Looking for a game with a little steampunk flair, a bit of an anime feel to it? Well, step right up because this week I'm going to be bringing you character creation in the world of Privateer Press's Iron Kingdoms. Now, for those of you that are following Kickstarter, there is a 5e conversion that's up there. This is not going to cover that 5e conversion. We're actually talking about the existing rulebook back from 2012. But if you're interested in the Kickstarter 5e conversion, I would go check out their Kickstarter and follow that for any more information coming on when that's going to be released. Iron Kingdoms is a game of full metal fantasy, which means we're looking at a world where magic and mechanisms are going to exist side by side, even if they don't play well together when you combine them, or at least attempt to. You might run across a mage who slings spells out the barrel of a gun, or a mechanic with a tuned up combat robot at their beck and call. For me, I really enjoyed playing the mage with this that slings spells out of a gun. There's so much I could do with 4 spells in one shot. Put something on fire, make it silent, make the damage and the accuracy better, all in one shot that doesn't actually cost me more than 1 action. It's pretty damn cool. So, a little background on the Iron Kingdoms. It was originally released back in 2004 with the Witchfire trilogy, and then expanded upon with the release of the War Machines and Hordes miniatures games. Personally, what I remember about Iron Kingdoms was a 3.5 book that I found at a Barnes and Nobles coming out of an Origins game fair, probably around 2008, that kind of gave me the inspiration that I needed to let one of my characters run a kind of mechanic style cleric in a D&D game. But going back to what the Iron Kingdoms had, Privateer Press released a new core rulebook back in 2012 that built upon the original Witchfire trilogy and the miniatures games to give players a way to dive deeper into the world that they'd built. The book has a ton of history and explanation about the world in it. So if you're very interested in world building and setting stuff, you've got plenty to dive into and digest with this one. All right, let's go ahead and get to the reason we're here. We want to make a character to play in an epic full metal fantasy world, right? Where are we going to begin? Well, like most systems, you've got a pretty basic breakdown of how to create a character. First step, we're going to choose our race. In Iron Kingdoms, we've got human, dwarf, gobber, Eosin, Nis, Ogren, and Trollkin, all in the core rulebook. There are some fluff books out there that kind of expand upon this, but if you're looking to just get started with the core book, these are what your options are. Your choice here is going to determine your starting primary and secondary ability scores, as well as the maximum that those scores can go to for each tier of play. So you've got 3 columns worth of numbers that you can see in our display, probably to my right, left, I don't remember. But it basically shows you a breakdown of what your scores are going to start at and then what they can go to for each level of play. Next up, we're going to go ahead and choose our archetype. An archetype is going to help define the role that you play in the game. There are 4 in the Iron Kingdoms. Gifted, which are your magic wielders. These are the only people that are actually allowed to cast magic, whether it be usual wizard means or wizard with a gun means. Intellectual, mighty, and skilled. So smart, strong, rogue. Each archetype has a number of benefits to choose from that help you better define your character. And like I said earlier, choosing gifted is the only way to start with an ARC score, which is the arcane ability. So if you want to play an arcane caster, you have to choose gifted as your archetype. Next up, you're going to choose 2. Yes, that's right, 2 careers to start with. Iron Kingdoms lets you start by combining 2 careers to make the character that best fits your vision for what you want to play at the outset, or at least, as close as we can come. One thing to note about these careers, though, certain ones of them are locked in that they require you to be a specific race or they require you to be a specific archetype. So, like I said, if you want to be a gun toting wizard, you have to play as a gifted character. Make sure that you've reviewed the chart, which we're showing here as well, to see what the requirements are. For each of these careers, you're going to get the starting abilities, skills, and assets from both of them to start with, which is really cool because you're not just picking and choosing from ones you want. You just get everything from both. I mean, that's not typical of a game that lets you multi-class. You usually get to start with one and then you don't get the benefit of the other one until you choose that next one. Next up, we're going to go ahead and increase our stats. We're going to get 3 points at the onset to increase our primary and secondary ability scores. This will help you round out your character, maybe make it a little bit more the way you want it to, put a little bit more into poise for that pistolero style, maybe a little bit more into strength to be a little bit tougher, maybe a little bit more into intellect to be a little bit smarter, that kind of breakdown. But you're only going to get 3, and you can spend them on a 1-for-1 basis here to up your things. Just remember that you do have a cap for all of your starting primary and secondary ability scores, and you can't go over that at this point. Finishing touches for your character are going to be involving purchasing the equipment that you'd like for them to have. So, basically, hey, I want to have 50 feet of rope and a grappling hook. I want to have a really cool set of armor if you didn't get it as part of your starting class. That is kind of one of the nice things about the game is that both of the careers, you get both of the starting gear for them. So you don't necessarily have to buy a weapon or buy an armor if you take a class or in this case a career or two, both of them that gives you your starting equipment. One thing I do want to note about character creation for Iron Kingdoms, as you advance and learn more of your abilities and you increase your stats and your skills, you're eventually going to be able to upgrade and choose another 2 careers at differing tiers of play to go into. Obviously, at that point, they are optional. You don't have to choose them. But if you're going to be interested in doing that going forward, you're definitely going to want to plan out what it is you want your character to be and make sure that you're kind of working towards that as you level up in your games. Just think about it as having a career roadmap for your character so that you can be the best version of it that you can be. So now we've got our shiny new character all set up and ready to go. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the core mechanics for actually playing this character at a table. Iron Kingdoms is primarily a 2d6 plus system. And what I mean by that is that for most of your rolls, you're going to be rolling 2d6s and adding in a number of modifiers. The core rulebook has a very handy chart shown here that tells you what your general target numbers are for completing your tasks. So they're going to range from, oh, yeah, I can do this easily to, oh my God, this is nigh impossible for me to make. The good thing with this is that you have a little bit extra that can help you reach those feats. We'll get to that just a little bit. General action economy, like in most of your games, you're going to have your move and your standard action to take on your turn, while also being able to perform a swift action, drawing something, quaffing a potion, that kind of thing. The good thing is certain careers, like your gun mage, which I've been talking about extensively throughout this video, or a sorcerer, they have abilities that can modify what you're able to do with a swift action. So you have to know what's kind of available to you. So like a sorcerer gets an extra swift action to cast a spell so that they're not just using one action to cast a spell and that's all that they can do other than move around. They get that nice throw it out there zippy spell and then maybe do something a little bit more, get up into melee if they're that type of sorcerer, just gives them a little bit more option to play with. Next, we're going to talk about feat points. So remember that little extra I told you about to help you with your 2d6 rolls? Well, with a feat point, which you get three of them to start, and you get them back by either downing enemies or rolling critical successes on your 2d6s, which means that two of your dice show the same number. These feat points can be used for rerolls, which are handy to have if you fail ostensibly, or they can be used to boost a roll, which means adding another d6 to your check. So instead of rolling just two, you're going to roll three and you're going to take all of them because you're boosting it and spending a resource for it, which is, definitely handy to have when you're trying to hit that, oh my God, nigh impossible task of, I don't know, shooting the can off the mage's head at 200 paces. Command range is a little bit of an interesting thing in Iron Kingdoms because Iron Kingdoms is based on the War Machines and Hordes tabletop battle game. Command range is defined as the range in which your abilities that are used to help allies function in. So usually a character has a certain inch radius that their abilities are good in, and anyone within that radius benefits from your command abilities. So, for example, I had a gun mage in this game that had an ability that allowed him, when he earned a feat point, if he could not earn more than what he had, if I was sitting at 3 and couldn't go above that, I had the ability to distribute that feat point to any of my allies that were within my command range. So, as long as one of my friends or party members was within, I think, 8 inches of my character, I could give them my feat point. So, one example there. The other thing with command range is being able to take control of the mechs that you might have under your command. So, if you're going to be any kind of marshal for a warjack, the command range tells you how much of an area you have fine control over your war mech versus if it's outside that range, it's going to work on like pre-programmed commands. Last but not least, we're going to talk about back arc and forward arc. Again, this is coming from a miniatures war game perspective. So you're seeing a lot of those elements being translated to the RPG as well. The idea that the forward arc is the front facing eyes forward arc, and the back arc is the back side, the back 180 for the character. Attacking in those arcs or defending from those arcs may net you extra benefits or penalties or trigger special abilities like backstrike, which is basically a rogue's sneak attack to do more damage, but you can only do that if you've already started in the person's back arc. So keep in mind, if you're going to play this game, facing has a consequence and an outcome in combat. So we've reached the point in the videos where if you've been following us for a while, you know that I usually like to show you guys a fillable PDF that's got a character already created in it. Unfortunately, I didn't find a form fillable PDF for Iron Kingdoms and didn't have quite time to put one together for this. So instead, we're just going to kind of talk through a character that I made for a most recent Iron Kingdoms game that I played in. So if you guys have been following me for a little bit, you know that I'm a big anime fan. One of the characters that I wanted to base this Iron Kingdoms character off of was Gene Starwind from Outlaw Star. So Gene is kind of that down on his luck bounty hunter. He takes odd jobs to kind of get by, but he has a very specific weapon that allows him to basically recreate magical effects with it. So things like black holes or lines of lightning, that kind of thing. So in Iron Kingdoms, the most relevant career that lets me do that is gun mage. To be a gun mage, I had to take the archetype of gifted so that I could actually cast magical spells with a bullet attached to it. To kind of replicate the rest of Gene's abilities, this is kind of where I took a little bit of leeway, a little bit of personal nuance with the character and kind of combined him with his sidekick, Jim, who was a little bit more smart, a little bit more savvy within the game. I took the other career as investigator. So not specifically a bounty hunter per se, but somebody that could be a private eye that could look into the background happenings within the game. It would allow me to basically be a little bit more proactive instead of reactive as a character. Obviously, Jim and Gene in Outlaw Star were human, so that defined my race for Iron Kingdoms. I started as human. We've already talked about how I took gun mage and I took investigator. So from there, my numbers kind of boiled out. I got the starting stats of a human. I was able to kind of modify them as I saw fit, make myself a little bit tougher, make myself a little bit more agile. I think make myself a little bit more potent with a gun. So that was an upgrade to physique, an upgrade to agility, and an upgrade to poise. I really focused specifically on being able to use my pistol to its best ability. So that went to my military skill output of pistol, 2 points right into there, so that I was as good with a pistol as I could be at starting out. And then general skills kind of broke down into those ones that would really help me benefit the character. One of the really cool things about the investigator archetype is that it has a special ability called hyper perception, which allows you to automatically boost any perception based roll, which means I'm automatically getting 3d6 instead of 2d6. So I don't have to spend a feat point for it. I just get it automatically. And let me tell you, being able to see gosh darn near everything in the game is quite the boon when you're starting off at level at the beginning of everything. Everything else was just kind of rounded out to make me overall a better investigator, overall a little bit better gun mage. So I can talk to people, I can stare them down, I can know the law so I can skirt it if I absolutely need to. I've got medicine so I can patch myself up. But the really good thing about this was when I made this character, I wasn't making it alone. I was in a session 0 with the rest of the players that I was going to be joining at this group. We all sat down and we all worked together to kind of put our characters together. A lot of the word together there. But the really cool thing with that is that we weren't stepping on anybody's toes. Yes, we might have skills that overlapped, but we might be using them in different ways as the game went on. But the way we worked it was that, yeah, I'm going to have this, you're going to have this, deception or perception is a really good thing to have. So everybody should have it. Maybe people don't have it maxed out, but everybody was trying to well round the group by having a variety of skills so that nobody was going to be left out when it actually came down to game time, where we were actually going to be able to really come together as a group to solve the problems that our GM was putting in front of us. And that makes not only the game run better, but it makes the character that I made feel more in tune with the world. Everyone, thank you very much for joining me for another one of our character creation sessions. As you know, here at USP, we do play live games over on our Twitch channel. So if you're interested in any of our live plays, you can come check us out there. We've got our link down below. Also, if you're at all interested in Iron Kingdoms as a game system that you might want to pick up, we have a DriveThruRPG affiliate link that you can click to follow through to purchase that PDF. Everything that you do, if you follow that link, will give us a little bit of a kickback so that we can continue to provide you guys really good content, both on our Twitch channel and here on YouTube with stuff like StoryForge. So if you liked what you saw, please go ahead and hit that like button and click the bell to get notified when we put up new videos like this. And if you're interested, leave us a comment below on what you might want to see in the future. Thank you for watching.